Indonesia is talking about the possible creation of an OPEC-like cartel for nickel. The Indonesians apparently interested in including Canada and Australia. So far, from what I've seen, though, the Canadians and Aussies have been cool on the idea. We're joined in studio by Mark Selby, Chairman, CEO at Canada Nickel. You've been around the nickel business for a while. You worked for Vale/Inco, didn't you?
Yeah, I worked for Inco for a number of years back, 20 years ago, and have kept a finger on the pulse of the nickel market all during that time.
We'll talk about what you're doing at Canada Nickel in a moment, but what do you think? Would that fly? I mean, obviously, the Americans would have something to say about it, presumably, in terms of antitrust, a nickel cartel.
Yeah, no, I was not surprised to see it. It's something actually I've been saying for the last 5 years. You know, if you look at how much nickel supply Indonesia controls, and just a few countries, if you add the Philippines or New Caledonia or Russia into that mix, those three countries control more of the nickel market than OPEC did at the peak of its power back in the early 1970s. So when you've got three countries, who need cash, who don't have any trouble intervening in their mining sector, for me, it's sort of a logical extension of those countries, finding ways to capture more of the value, for the countries themselves.
And that would be Philippines, New Caledonia, and Indonesia.
Yes, yep. And you could also toss Russia in the mix, who again we know has no issues intervening in a lot of different things, unfortunately.
So nickel, we're looking there, it spiked after Putin attacked Ukraine on a supply panic, but it has come down, but it looks like it's trading above the pre-pandemic level.
Oh, yeah. I mean, today we're trading nearly $12 a pound. Our feasibility study for the project was done at $7.75 a pound. So, these kind of prices are very supportive of projects. If you look at what's happened in nickel over the last year, I mean, again, in early March, the LME ceased trading for the first time on that metal because of the fundamental market imbalance was there. We saw Noront get taken out by Aussie billionaire Andrew Forrest, almost 10 times the price that the stock was trading 2 years ago. We've now have that Indonesia announcement, and BHP is splashing $6 billion down for an Australian company whose one of three assets is a large low-grade nickel project, just like what we have. So, no, it's great to see the activity that's happening in the space.
Do you think it would be a good idea for the nickel-producing nations? I know Canada's pretty small. I think we only supply about 6% of the world's nickel, but would it be a good idea for the nickel nations to do maybe a quiet cartel, not be overt about it?
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense for those three countries to do it, and capture the amount of, make sure that those poorer countries get the value from their resources in the ground. I think for us, we're fully integrated into the North American and European supply chains. We need to be part of the world's free trading bloc. Anything that they do from a cartel will benefit. It was a good idea to own oil and gas assets in the early 70s before OPEC happened. I think it's an equally good trade to buy nickel assets at this point in time with this cartel on the horizon.
Yeah, I suppose you're in the sweet spot. You don't have to get involved in the cartel and put yourself in line for possible regulatory action from the Americans, but you would gain from a higher price.
Oh, 100%. No, it'd be a perfect outcome for us.
Tell us about this Crawford project you have near Timmins in Ontario.
Yeah, so this is the largest sulfide discovery since the early 1970s.
And remind us what's important about sulfide, please. Sorry, Mark.
No problem. Yeah, no, sulfide's one of the other big challenges facing the nickel industry and the EV market, which is a big new source of nickel, is that the process that they use in Indonesia with laterite ore, which is the other type of nickel ore, you're basically taking a ton of soggy dirt that has 1% nickel in it and basically using a huge amount of energy to melt it. So the carbon footprint that's associated with that laterite production is anywhere from 30 to 80 tons of CO2 per ton of nickel. And it's a key ingredient going into electric vehicles, where people are trying to decarbonize the planet. Sulfides, because of the nature of the mineral and how you process it, you can do it in a very low carbon way. And where we are in Ontario with access to low carbon electricity, it's an ideal place to develop a nickel sulfide deposit. And then these type of deposits called ultramafic have this wonderful property that the tailings and waste rock that we have left over spontaneously absorb CO2. So we've been doing a bunch of test work, and we believe we can generate 20 tons of carbon credits per ton of nickel that we produce. So we would be producing 1 million tons of carbon credits per year. And to put that in context, the biggest carbon capture facility in Canada is run by Shell out near the oil sands, and they capture about 1 million tons of carbon a year. So the fact that we're going to capture that and produce 50,000 tons of nickel a year is a great outcome for us as well.
So essentially the waste rock absorbs carbon from the atmosphere from your process?
Yeah, it's spontaneously, geochemically, when it's at surface at current temperature and pressure, it has to grab a CO2 molecule out of the air and convert itself. So we've found a way to help that process along and can get to zero carbon within 24 hours of doing our treatment to it, and we get to the 20 tons of carbon credits within a few days.
What do you do to the material to speed up the CO2 absorption?
Yeah, it's literally it's a very simple process. It's almost shame on the industry for not figuring this out sooner. You literally inject it with a relatively high strength CO2 and basically leave the water in, and the right amount of water with the right amount of CO2 makes that reaction happen much more quickly. And so we're very excited. We think we can actually bring that within the mill complex and have it have that carbon captured before it even leaves the mill facility.
You're thinking about an open pit mine, a nickel mine. What kind of capex are you thinking about at this stage?
Yeah, so all we're doing with these kinds of nickel deposits is applying what you'd see to a large low-grade copper deposit, except it's a large low-grade nickel deposit. So we'd be processing 120,000 of tons of ore a day, producing nearly $1 billion worth of nickel. And again, that's at scale capex. Our PEA was $1.2 billion. So,
sorry, 1.2 billion?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
US or
US,
Canadian?
US.
Right.
Yeah.
And how close are you to raising that? Are you in talks, or what will be the procedure, Mark?
Yeah, so right now we're just in the final stages of completing our feasibility study. Once that's done, we'll look to put the capital together. But again, with the EV industry, desperate for you saw the US government handing out $2.4 billion to a range of critical minerals companies. There is a lot of interest from the Korean companies that provide all the batteries for the U.S. auto industry. So we're looking to get some or all of the equity funding we need from them to finance the project.
From Korean
battery companies. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So I've been traveling to Korea fairly regularly over the past year. And in terms of the project debt, again, it's Ontario. It's just outside of Timmins. It's about as mining-friendly a jurisdiction to get. The debt portion of the thing will be very straightforward to get.
But you're hoping all the equity you might be able to get from Korean battery companies?
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. The discussions we've had. The reality is, high carbon nickel from Indonesia that's controlled by Chinese companies isn't the solution for GM, Ford, and the European car companies to electrify their fleets, and so they're desperate to get nickel supply that can come on in the latter half of the decade. Benchmark Minerals are the leading sort of EV supply chain group. Their forecast, by 2035, is we need another 3 million tons of nickel supply, or 70 mines the size of Crawford. That's the scale of the challenge that's there.
Your market cap only about 150 million.
Yeah.
The stock has dropped over the past year. Why is that?
Oh, the entire junior mining sector. Every 3 to 4 years off, we have a Black Friday 65% off sale. And the last 6 months has been one of those. When you look at what's happened, in the market, the fact that you've got an Indonesian cartel forming, you've seen the big mining companies writing billion-dollar checks to acquire companies. Now is the time, for investors to get in the story. If you like what's happened with the lithium over the last 2 years, the rest of the metals that go into the same battery, nickel, cobalt, graphite, are about to have the same run that lithium's had over the past 2 years.
Marco.